Okay. Well, talking about my childhood, I grew up in Waterboro, Maine. I went to the school system out there, which is known as Massabesic. And growing up until middle school, I was a pretty happy kid, pretty easygoing. I was involved in sports, uh, in the fall, winter, and summer, spring. Parents were happy. Like I said, I don't remember not being happy. I had my best friend that lived like two houses down. It was your typical growing up as a kid out in the country. But I made it through high school, and then I graduated from high school. I got accepted into a college in Rhode Island called Johnson and Wales because I always wanted to be a cook growing up, a chef. A culinary arts I was intrigued by. But I was afraid of leaving my family for 4 years. So I took off 2 months out of the summer after graduation, and I just worked at a restaurant because that I'd worked out all through high school. And in August, it was August 2nd, that I went to the recruiter's office, and I don't know, I was curious. I just wanted to see what they would tell me. I assumed that they would say, yeah, dude, no, you can't join. So I went in, they interviewed me, asked me a bunch of questions. I was good to go. And that day I signed my contract. And then after I signed my contract, that was a pretty easy sale because he was like, you want to join? I said, yeah. He said, what do you want to be? I said, military police. He said, okay, sign the dotted line. I said, thank you. Yeah, I signed. I waited 2 or 3 days. I didn't know how to tell my dad. So one day, me and my dad were outside, and I was working on my car at the time. It was a piece of crap Volkswagen, I'll never forget. And my dad just asked me the question, what are you going to do with your life? He's like, if you aren't going to go to college, you have to start paying rent. And I said, well, about that, Dad. I said, hey, I joined the Army a couple of days ago, and I'm shipping out the basic in 1 week, 7 days exactly. And he laughed at my face. He called me a liar. He said he didn't believe me. And I was like, okay, Dad, me and my dad were best friends now, Even then we had a really good relationship. So that's why, there was humor during that situation, But he laughed and stuff, and then he brought it up to my stepmom because she was in the Coast Guard. And he's like, yeah, he said he joined the Army. And, she was very happy, very excited, and it got me excited. And I think that's when I hit my dad because we walked outside later that evening, and I've only seen my dad cry twice in his life, and that was the second time. The moment I found out, I'd been in Germany for probably 60 days, and my unit says, we've received an alert order, which an alert order is before you get deployment orders. It's basically a heads up, it's a warning saying, start getting prepared. Y'all need to go home. Y'all need to tell your wives, your brothers, your sisters, your mom, your dad, your girlfriends, your dogs, that you're leaving. And they didn't tell us where. They said, Iraq. They said, we're going to Iraq in late October, early November of 2006. And how I felt, I would have to say I was anxious. I was curious. I had never been, in an environment like that. Yeah, I don't know. The first time I deployed, it was weird because I was looking forward to it, like the experience. I was looking forward to seeing new places. I was interested to see what war was like because I was naive. My first experience with combat. And me and my roommate, we were walking down what they call Sniper Alley. We heard boom, boom. Now there was a river on the other side that separated us from, the city of Ahila. And, we stopped and we looked at each other. And it almost was identical to if you take a big rock and you throw it in a pond or the lake, how it has that concussion little bloom sound. Yeah. And we stopped and looked at each other. We waited. Nothing happened. And then we started walking closer. Now what they did is, we didn't know at the time, but that was the beginning stage of what we call indirect fire, which is mortars. What was mortars for us? They used rockets every now and then, but those were mortars. And yeah, they don't whistle like in Hollywood. We were always told a certain size whistles. So I think it's the bigger ones whistle and the smaller ones don't. But these ones definitely didn't whistle because we didn't hear anything. And they would walk them in. So they would start short, and they would adjust their mortar tube, I imagine, to shoot farther out. So that's what we call walking it in. And yeah, they were walking them in. So the first 3 or 4 hit the water, and then they started hitting and landing on the helipad, which we were actually walking across. And then they started hitting pretty close. Me and him, we ran into each other because we had just left dinner chow. So you're talking 6 p.m., it's dark out, there's stuff blown up around you. You don't know what it is, you're 18, So we actually run into each other, and then I start running towards it because I have no idea where it's coming from. So I start running towards, the helipad, and my roommate's yelling at me, "What are you doing, Get the fuck over here." And so I look, and, he was running. There was a gate that we had to run through, and the guy was actually locking the gate. So we were screaming, "Don't lock it." We ran through the gate. We're still getting mortared, and we had bunkers positioned throughout our fob. So we ended up making it into a bunker. On my first deployment, the hardest time that I had is this one night, and my buddy and me, my squad leader came in and said, "Hey, one of you guys got to go." And so I looked at my buddy, my roommate. His name was Michael Murchison. He was also my roommate in Germany. He was a little bit older than me. He was 20. He was his family's only son. He was a very laid back, pretty lazy dude, but he was a good guy. And he looked at me and he's like, "Hey, it's your turn." And I was like, "No, it's your turn, dude." And so we rock, paper, scissors it, and I won. Yeah, I'll never forget right before he left, because we were outside our room, we were both smoking, and he was in all of his gear, and I was like, "All right, man." This was August. It was August in Iraq, so it was super hot. It was 105 degrees that night. And so he's in all his gear and he's sweating. And I was like, "All right, Merch," that's what we call him for short. I was like, "Take it easy, dude." And I was like, "Hey, man, if you don't make it, can I have your PlayStation?" I think it was PlayStation 2. I think that's when the PS2 first came out. And he was like, "Oh, yeah, whatever, dude," because that's just the way that we were taught. And he left, and the next morning, my medic comes, and he wakes me up, and he was like, "Hey, I got something bad to tell you." And I was more irritated that he woke me up, to be honest with you. So he woke me up, and I'm sitting there. He was like, "Hey, man, Murchison was killed last night around 1 o'clock en route Tampa by an IED. And after the memorial ceremony, my squad leader told me I had to pack up all of his belongings. And as I was packing up his belongings, that's when I remember is when it hit me. Because I picked up his name tapes and the pictures of his sister and his parents. And I started bawling. I could hold myself together. But I was alone, so I didn't feel uncomfortable. Yeah, after my first deployment, oof, um, I had a short temper. I had a really short fuse for bullshit. Uh, I drank a lot. I didn't really care about a lot. There wasn't a lot that I cared about. Um, I felt pretty comfortable being in the army, but there was a few times, like when I came back here to Maine on R&R, I didn't like it. See, we had to fly back in our uniforms when we went on R&R, and then back then when we were on leave. And people ask you some of the dumbest questions. Like someone would shake my hand, say thank you and stuff like that. And I don't mind that. I don't look at it as I got it. People like, hey, thank you for doing what you're doing. But I look at it as my job's no different than a cop or firefighter. Our job are just selfless jobs. There's inherent risk within that profession. And I raised my right hand. So, I chose to. So, like, I was involuntarily told I'm a sacrifice, But anyways, yeah, I came back and, like, I'll never forget the time. I'm walking into the main mall. And the dude stops because I'm in a uniform. I'm actually going to buy a bunch of clothes because I had none. I had no clothes. And I'm walking in and he goes, hey, are you in the army? And I'm like, yep. He's like, have you been deployed? I said, yep, just got back. First question out of his mouth, did you kill anybody? And it takes a real dumb person to ask somebody that. And I really mean that. You gotta be stupid. That's the first time I ever lost my bearing, my temper on somebody for asking me a question. Yeah, I just flipped out. It was a stupid question. He didn't even know me. So I gave him an answer that he probably didn't like, but I thought was appropriate. Yeah, it was hard. Reintegrating was hard. It was harder for some people because they had families. For me, I was single, so I'd hang out with my buddies, my boys that I went with. So we all had the same attitude, pretty much with life. So, it was being reintegrated wasn't that bad. But with like society and civilians, it was rough. It was rough because it's not their fault. I'm not blaming normal people, but they just had different values and beliefs. And it's due to ignorance. And I'm not saying that in a negative way, like, oh yeah, you're dumb, you're ignorant. No, I'm saying you just don't know. You just don't know. And I found it really hard to hold a conversation with them because they would say stuff that would irritate me, like stuff that they worried about. Just shocked me, just the petty things. It was hard for me to relate and to understand, people. I would tell them that, and they probably heard it. We don't want pity. We don't want pity. We don't need to be recognized. It doesn't help sometimes. Obviously, when you do something that you consider selfless and for the bigger cause, the bigger picture, it's nice to get a hey, nice job. But I mean, yeah, on Veterans Day, say thank you. The other 364, don't worry about it. I'm just a normal person.